Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. I am trying to hit 100k subscribers on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription will be much appreciated. Basketball sucks. I don't like it. I don't know why I decided to make this my career because it just brings me pain, apparently. For those who don't know, the Chicago Bulls just lost to the Houston Rockets, who are 1-15 to this point, now 2-16, and the Bulls are now 12-7, which I believe drops them to the 6th seed, if I'm not mistaken, in the Eastern Conference. So I'm fucking depressed. Now, this is also after just losing a game to the Indiana Pacers, which I was more willing to excuse because A, the Pacers are a better basketball team than the Houston Rockets, and B, the Chicago Bulls had just come off of a long road trip, one of the most brutal road trips that you can have, which is the long West Coast trip. And they also had a back-to-back. They had just played the Knicks the night before. So to come off of that long road trip and then get a back-to-back didn't seem fair. And I was like, okay, I'll give them a pass on that. Losing to the Rockets is unacceptable. I was actually planning on watching multiple games, or an extra game on top of this game, and I watched like the first quarter of it or whatever. It was the Heat Timberwolves game, but I ended up having to put it away because I also was watching the Celtics-Nets game and the fourth quarter of Pacers-Lakers, and I'll talk about both of those. I originally was like, okay, the Bulls this is gonna be over by halfway through the third quarter. Like, the game's gonna be over. The Bulls will easily win this one. They'll blow them out because the Rockets fucking suck. No, that didn't happen. So, what went so wrong? First of all, in the first half, it was more so the starters, and in the second half, it was more so the bench in terms of what the Rockets were doing. Kevin Porter Jr., his efficiency and his playmaking has been disappointing this year, but his efficiency wasn't good in this one either. Shot well from three, but he also got 9 assists. Christian Wood was really good. He's been awful this year, but he was good today. Eric Gordon was good. Jalen Green, before he got hurt, was playing phenomenally. Multiple nice drives, a big three out of the corner. I think he hit a step-back mid-range shot, if I'm remembering correctly. I actually don't know if that's true. I might be thinking of something else. But regardless, Jalen Green was really good in that first quarter. In fact, if he had played the whole game, I feel like this wouldn't even been close. And the second half comes around, and then it's Armani Brooks, who is the cousin of RDC World, I believe, some sort of familial relationship. Daniel House Jr., 4 for 4 from outside, hit a step-in mid-range shot, and I think his other shot was something in the paint. I can't remember for sure. And then the guy I have heard everything about with the Rockets, which is Sengun, he had himself a great game. So, also, no, I said all 4 of them. So 4 guys with double-digit points off of the bench, 4 guys in the starting lineup with double-digit points. Just absolutely insane. So I will say, and I was initially going to chalk this up to, and I've talked about this in a couple of videos now, I was initially going to chalk this up to bad team plays good against good team, and good team doesn't even play that bad. It's just that sometimes bad teams play good. Could have said that more coherently. But that's what I was thinking initially. I have dog fur on my leg, I've just realized. That's what I thought initially. And then the Bulls turned it up in the fourth quarter, and I quickly realized, oh, they just kind of flipped a switch and started playing good, and it seems as though they just weren't taking this shit seriously for a majority of the game. Part of that was Alex Caruso, who was phenomenal in that fourth quarter. He scored 13 points in the fourth quarter. But as for everybody else, this was Vucevic's return game. He was okay. His efficiency was once again not great, but he was his return game, so I'm not going to be too mad at him. He also did foul out, which is not great. DeMar DeRozan really sucked. This was probably his worst game of the year. It's certainly up there. Zach's really the only guy who, and then Lonzo in the first half. Lonzo had 18 points in the first half, and then had a 1 in the second half. So it must have been 17 because he didn't shoot free throws. He had a lot of points in the first half, didn't score again much in the second half. Yeah, so this was a frustrating-ass game. Ayo Dosunmu had a really cool dunk. Kobe White took a bunch of dumb shots. I don't know why Javonte Green is getting more minutes than Derrick Jones Jr. when Derrick Jones Jr. has clearly showcased himself to be the better player. But that's enough on that game. All I'm going to say in terms of the Chicago Bulls and their standing in the league right now, I always knew that like third in the power ranking was not real, because that's I think the NBA's official power ranking had them just behind the Warriors and the Suns, and like they're just not on that tier. I love this team, and I'm glad they're not bad. But everyone being like, hey, are the Chicago Bulls contenders? I was pretty adamantly in the, no, not really. Don't think so. And then here we are, lose to the Rockets after losing to the Pacers. So, other game that I watched prominently was the Celtics versus Nets game, which was nationally televised. This game, I don't actually have a whole lot to say about it. It was looking like an absolute blowout, and then the Celtics made a bit of a run in the third quarter as Jaylen Brown finally started to find his shot. But it ended up being kind of just damped out later in the fourth quarter because it felt like the momentum was swinging in their favor, but then they just continued to miss their shot. So it was like, you know, the arena is jumping, but at a certain point, if you miss 5 shots in a row, they're really not going to be doing that anymore. What's annoying is that this game felt like one of the better playmaking games for the Celtics. They had 25 assists in total, but the thing is they should have had way more because there were just a lot of guys missing open shots. As I mentioned, Jaylen Brown, he finished with 13, had a couple of nice drives, a mid-range shot over KD, but he goes 0 for 8 from outside and 5 for 15 overall. The guy just could not find his fucking shot. Grant Williams has, at least to my knowledge, been a respectable three-point shooter this year. Let me check his stats just to make sure that that is true. Yeah, he's 41% on 3.5 attempts per game, but he was 2 for 7 in this one. Jason Tatum was horribly inefficient as well. So, like, if Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are both not going to score the ball and Marcus Smart leads your team in scoring, also Marcus Smart playmaking was phenomenal today. He had 8 assists. The guy could have had 15. Multiple just botched potential assists. Tatum played bad. Brown played bad. Simple as that. That said, I was actually more happy with what I saw from the Celtics in this game than in games where Tatum might have had 30, but the rest of the offense was stagnant. There was good ball movement. There was generally good shots, so the Nets did play some relatively solid defense. But overall, like, the system and the movement and the passing was a lot better with the Celtics in this game than I've seen in other games with them this year. But it's weird to credit that because they also lost by almost 20 points because the shots weren't actually dropping. But they were generating good shots at the very least. And on the Nets side of things, there really is very little to say. It was a very Nets game. Cam Thomas hit some cool end of shot clock shots. Patty Mills, 7 for 10 from 3, which is great. James Harden, once again, not great efficiency on the shots, but got to the free throw line. So I have very little to say on the net side of things, so I'm not even going to bother. On the Lakers-Pacers fourth quarter and overtime, I tuned in for the fourth quarter because the Pacers were up like 8 to 10 points, I think it was, and I was like, the Lakers are going to make a comeback. And then they did precisely that. Although it wasn't a huge comeback. I actually think I was no. Okay, I'm flipping things. I think it was like a 2 or something point game going into the third or going into the fourth, and then the Pacers got a quick lead, and then the Lakers came back. Either way, there was a short comeback in this one, and LeBron. Clutch shot after clutch shot, multiple LaFuck you threes, the stare down to the ground and just weird one-leg step-back move that shouldn't work but works. 5 for 12 from 3 in this game overall. He had a nice drive, and he hit another shot that I'm trying to think of to close in overtime. He hit 2 threes just in his defender's face. I'm trying to remember what the last shot that he hit was, because I swear he hit a really big shot as well, and I'm just blanking on what it was. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, again, I didn't watch the first 3 quarters of this game, so I can't comment on the game as a whole. But LeBron James looked fantastic. Russell Westbrook made some nice plays in the fourth quarter, once again being solid in the fourth quarter. A couple of drives, a corner 3 catch and shoot from LeBron. Malik Monk was good off of the bench. Wayne Ellington hit a mid-range shot to pretty much seal this one. And then I don't really have anything else to say on their side. And then LeBron finished with 39. So, turns out LeBron is still good. But Malcolm Brogdon, He hit a couple of shots in the overtime. He hit a floater off of a couple of offensive rebounds. Also, one thing I forgot to mention with the Lakers, they're running Melo and LeBron as the big men against Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. It was very interesting. A lot of spacing with that lineup, the most spacing that Russell Westbrook has seen the entire year. And obviously AD didn't play in this game, so I'm curious if maybe that's a lineup they'll go to even with AD still on the roster, because it was really effective offensively. Defensively, they got burned a couple of times as a result of it, although not as much as you might think. But the fact that they went against two centers essentially and held their own, pretty interesting, and what they can bring to the table offensively with that type of lineup, definitely something to experiment with. And then I also have to shout out Chris Duarte for hitting a wild three to send the game into overtime. LeBron missed a three to win the game with like a couple seconds left on the clock, but yeah, Chris Duarte, wild three to send the game into OT. Like, he was falling out of bounds. Should have probably been called a foul, to be honest, but it wasn't. And yeah, that's it. Also, speaking of things that were dumb fouls or not fouls, I forgot to mention this thing from the Rockets game. I don't think it would have won the Bulls the game, but there was a fucking bullshit call on Lonzo Ball where he hit a three-pointer and he fell down, and they called an offensive foul. When you look, literally didn't touch his defender. And then they review it. Lonzo gets a challenge, and they still called it. It was blatantly not an offensive foul, and they still called it. That pissed me off a lot. Still think the Bulls would have lost, but that was stupid. Anyways, got to go get back to watching the Warriors-Sixers game now, but that is it. Goodbye.